Today we're going to be looking at a few more items that sold on a well-known Japanese auction site. Sadly, I didn't win any of these. It's going to be mainly records that we look at today, and we begin with a rare novelty single that sold for a surprising amount of money. Alright, what we have here is a single from 1958, late 1958, on the Atlantic label, and I love that yellow and black label design. Something about yellow labels I really like. It's probably got something to do with the Elvis 40 Greatest compilation that was released in England in the 1970s. That was on a yellow label. But anyway, this single is from 1958, and you can see it has a great cover illustration, or two illustrations really. There's the one with Elvis, and I love the way they've enlarged his head with that magnifying glass. And then on the left there's that woman holding a guitar design. Now the first side, the first song, it's called I Want to Spend Christmas with Elvis, and it was actually performed by Little Lamsey Penn. It was originally released on the Atco label in America in 1956. But on the B-side, it's got a song called Early in the Morning, and that's actually credited to Bobby Darin and the Rinky Dinks. And that was released in America also on the Atco label in 1958, although it was credited to the Rinky Dinks. And there is a Bobby Darin connection to both sides because he actually co-wrote both of these songs. And interestingly, the A side, I Want to Spend Christmas with Elvis, translates, the Japanese title translates back into English as I Am a Rockabilly Girl. Okay, so how much do you think this sold for? I was very interested in getting this record, but it went for a whopping $258. Next up is a very rare movie-related item from 1957. This is a promotional leaflet. I think from memory it was 4 pages. That dates back to early 1957 when the movie Love Me Tender was first released in Japan, and you can see it's only 15 centimeters long. And there was an Elvis discography on the back, LPs, 78s and 45s. And at the bottom of the leaflet there it says Victor Records, and in the black text just above that or below the picture of Elvis it tells you the name of a theater, and it says from February the 16th, so that must have been the date when the movie opened in Japan. So it doesn't look much, but it's a very old promotional item from 1957, and this sold for an unbelievable $713. Next is something that I'd love to have in front of me when I'm making these videos, and this is fairly straightforward. This is a mic. Unfortunately the picture is not very clear, but it's an old RCA mic. Very, very cool looking item indeed. Any idea what this sold for? $1,408. I've got no idea if such an item would fetch the same price overseas, but that's what it sold for here. Now we have a rare CD from Australia. This is something you don't see very often, the Guitar Man CD, and I don't think it was released on CD in many countries. So there was quite a bit of interest on this particular item. I was interested in buying it myself, but once again it got too expensive for me, and the price it went for was $46, which seems a little bit pricey for a CD. Next up is a set of CDs from Japan from 2008. Now this is an interesting lot. In recent months I've shown you 2 sets of Elvis Japanese mini LP CDs, and this set here was the 3rd and final set, which came out in 2008, and it consisted of 12 studio albums, 9 of which were from the 1970s, as well as Something for Everybody, Potluck, and Elvis for Everyone. And you can see at the top of the picture there's a box, and you can see the CDs in the box below in one of the small pictures at the bottom. That box, the red box, you could only get that by sending away these stickers that were on the outside of the CDs, on the wrappers. So it was a promotional only item. I think you had to buy all 12 CDs from memory. It's been a long time, I can't remember. But I'm pretty sure you had to buy all 12 CDs in order to get that box. And the good thing about this set of CDs is, well, there's a couple of good things. The first thing is they've actually used replicas of the original LP Obies. And for me, it's particularly interesting to see the one for Something for Everybody, because I've never seen an LP, Something for Everybody, with the original Obie from 1961. And another good thing about these CDs was they all came with bonus tracks, especially the albums from the mid-70s are interesting because they have the undubbed versions of songs like It's Midnight, and also from the Elvis Presley Boulevard sessions. In other words, the songs which appeared on Our Memories of Elvis Volumes 1 and 2. And in fact, the Fool CD also has the full-length version of Don't Think Twice, It's All Right. And this set sold for a very expensive $536. Next, we have a very common LP with a very rare Japanese Obi. This is an album that sold very well in the 70s, Elvis in Person, and it was released several times with different Obies each time. This one here actually has probably the rarest Obi, the yellow one, and this one was only available around 1974, and you don't see this Obi very often. And in fact, there were a few other albums released with a similar yellow Obi, Blue Hawaii, That's the Way It Is, and a couple of others. So it's really the Obi that's worth having in this particular case. If you look at the smaller pictures below, you can see that the yellow Obi actually extends about halfway down the back cover, or halfway down the inside cover in this case. And the inside cover actually has two photographs from the Elvis on Tour documentary, and the color picture that you can see just beside the record label in the small picture there, that's actually the front cover of the booklet. So it came with a booklet. And the small picture on the right at the bottom, that is the back cover, another picture from Elvis on Tour. But as I say, the record itself is not especially rare. It's the Obi that was attracting all the attention for this auction, which sold for $75. And coming up next, we have three of the rarest Japanese EPs from the 1950s. This is the first of those three EPs. This is Elvis Sales, one of the last EPs released in the 1950s in the plastic covers. And it could well be the rarest of the 1950s EPs. Certainly one of the rarest. Hardly ever turns up. Understandably enough, because it's basically interview material. However, in the case of this EP, all the interview material is actually on side 1, and they released two other songs on side B. They were Peace in the Valley and Take My Hand, Precious Lord. The reason for that is because the Peace in the Valley EP was not released in Japan in the 1950s. The other two songs had appeared on an EP. And this record sold for $550. You might think that's not that expensive for such a rare EP, but in fact, I remember from the item description that the seller said that this record was slightly warped, so it probably would have sold for a lot more had it not been slightly warped. This one here is actually the first ever Elvis record released in Japan, although it does actually have two songs by Hank Snow on there as well. It's an EP called Western Caravan Volume 4, and it has I Forgot to Remember to Forget and Mystery Train, as well as the two Hank Snow songs. This came out at the end of 1955. And this one, not surprisingly, sold for a lot of money. The price was $878. This one rarely turns up for sale. This one you might remember I've actually shown myself in a couple of videos. I do actually have this one. This is Western Caravan Volume 6. There were no other Western Caravan EPs with Elvis music on, just volumes 4 and 6. This one only has one Elvis song, it's Baby Let's Play House. And this one sold for even more money. It went for $977. But I'm hanging on to my copy. Finally, a series of auctions that were all listed by the same person who had a huge Elvis collection for sale. And he ended up making thousands and thousands of dollars from these auctions. And this is the first part of that collection. This is a wonderful looking set of singles and EPs, and almost all of these are actually rare records. You have a dozen EPs from the 1950s, and you have a few rare singles in there as well, such as Girl of My Best Friend, One Night, and there are 3 singles there with pink covers and a small picture of Elvis in a circle. They are quite possibly different singles because they used the same cover design on a few occasions. The black and white cover at the bottom right there, that's a promo single from the 1980s. It has Speedway on one side and There Ain't Nothing Like a Song on the other side. This is a really, really attractive lot, and of course I was very interested in getting this, but it got way too expensive for me because it eventually sold for $2,320. And the seller also had a lot of Elvis LPs for sale, and he broke them up into lots of about 10-12 records. And this one here you can see is mainly LPs plus 178. And there's only really one record in here that's worth having from a rarity point of view, and that is that copy of Elvis Presley that you can see at the bottom now with the red obi. That red obi tells me it's the mono copy from 1962. And this lot sold for $581. Another set of 10 or so LPs. I think all of these except Moody Blue are Japanese. And again, there's just one album here which is rare. The other ones are not that difficult to find. And the rare album in this case is on the top, on the right side. That's an original mono pressing of Potluck from 1962 with its very, very rare obi. And this set sold for $546. So somebody must have really wanted that copy of Potluck. And the seller still hadn't done. This is another list of 10 LPs that the same seller listed, and this is a really, really exciting lot here. You've got 7 Japanese Elvis LPs there. There's a couple of American releases from 1977, and that copy of Burning Love, I'm not sure where that came from. But there are 5 1950s Japanese Elvis LPs. Loving You at the top there, the blue cover, and Elvis next to that. And below you've got A Date with Elvis, and Elvis's Christmas album, and then on the right side Rock, Elvis Rock, which is a various artists compilation, and I think it has about 50% Elvis, 50% other artists. And that also looks to be the original copy, original mono pressing of Elvis's Back as well at the bottom. The one that looks like How Great Thou Art at the top, that's actually a Japanese gospel compilation, 2 LP compilation. But it's really the 50s albums that are the expensive part of this lot, the collectible part of this lot. And this set sold for $1,470. And last but not least, this is another 10 album lot from the same seller. And the album that created the most interest from this set was the one that you can see in the picture at the top on the left there. That's Elvis's Golden Records Volume 2, the Japanese version. It's completely different to the American version. This album dates from 1959, and it's one of only 2 albums that I've ever seen with obis from the 1950s. The other ones probably didn't have one. So yeah, this is really expensive. I've seen that album go for $2,000 on its own before, and there is actually another album in this lot which is really worth having. And if you look at the small pictures, the 4th picture on the right, you can see there's the Japanese King Creole album, which I've shown in another video. That's also quite a difficult album to find. So this lot sold for $1,637, which is not bad considering, as I said, the copy of Golden Records Volume 2 can sell for up to $2,000 with that obi. So there you go, some interesting stuff there. I'll try and do another one of these auctions in the future, but until then, take care, see you next time. Cheers.